My role here in district, I am our Social Emotional Learning and Wellness Coordinator, or SEL for short, and 204 is really a leader in SEL and making those connections between family and school and our community. So one of the things that we do is Parent University. We do them throughout the school year. Sometimes they are virtual, sometimes they are in person. We know how excited kindergartners get about getting to come to the buildings, how excited the parents get about coming to the building, so we wanted to make sure that we had this one here in person. Tonight's topic is becoming an elementary school parent, and as Laura said, individual buildings will have their own events and their own welcomes and their own open houses, but tonight's really an overarching look at becoming an elementary school parent and ways that we can prepare our child, regardless of which school they will be attending, to be successful in kindergarten or in first grade. So I have an amazing panel sitting to my side right here, and they are representing several of our buildings. On the end, we have Sarah Nowak. She is the principal here at Welch, and she was so kind to open up her doors to all of us this evening. We have Rianne Cascanaro. She is a social worker at Kendall Elementary. We have Luke Ratajan. He is a kindergarten teacher at Georgetown. And then we have Mary Molick. She is a first grade teacher at Owen. And then we have Lindsay Stepper. She is our student service coordinator over at Brookdale. So at the end, we will have time for questions. Some of the questions were submitted on your registration form, and I have those, but you're also welcome at the end just to raise your hand and have a conversation and ask questions. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Schwartz. She is our positive engagement and student support coach at the district, so I work closely with Tracy, and Lauren Quinn, who is a kindergarten teacher at Peterson. So,
all right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. We're going to take the first 25 minutes or so and just kind of talk about school preparedness from that social emotional lens for your student, and then talk a little bit about what you can expect in terms of how we are supporting your students as kindergartners, first graders, and beyond when it comes to that social emotional learning component of being a school student, becoming an elementary school parent. So what is SEL? Dawn mentioned it earlier. SEL is social emotional learning. You will hear a lot about that from your students teachers, from your school. And social emotional learning, we are recognizing as educators, is equally as important as learning academics and academic growth and academic progress. And this is information based on lots of research, and we work here in District 204 following a lot of the work of what is called CASEL. It's the Collaborative for Social Emotional Learning. We're going to talk a little bit more about why we focus on this and why we feel it's important, but I wanted to just share that with you. There's also here, I put up a QR code on the screen. If you're someone who wants to dig a little deeper and see what it is we're talking about, that link there, that QR code will take you to that CASEL website. There are also several videos on there that will explain this more in depth so you can get a better understanding of social emotional learning in general. All right, so when we talk about SEL, we talk about these 5 skills or skill areas, their domains. And again, this comes from this casel.org. It's a lot of research done with educators and with mental health professionals and things like that. But these are these areas that we're focusing on when we talk about SEL. So to break them down a little bit, I'll start up in the top right there with self-awareness. Now again, I want you to keep in mind when we talk about these domains, we're talking age appropriate, right? What self-awareness skills a 5-year-old has versus a 10-year-old versus a 15-year-old is different. But as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old coming into kindergarten and first grade, we talk about just awareness of their own emotions, identifying emotions, identifying their strengths, things that they're good at, and interests. Getting to really kind of dive into who am I as a student, as an individual. Then we go into responsible decision making. This is talking about things like, how do I socially appropriately handle a conflict perhaps with a peer? How do I ask? How do I share? How do I make friends? Right? How do I, when I want to use the red crayon, ask to use the red crayon instead of just grabbing it from someone who's using it? How do I problem solve when the peer says, no, you can't use the red crayon? Okay, how do we problem solve around that? So we teach to that, we talk about that, we model it, and we practice it. Relationship skills. You will see the overlap greatly, right? But we talk about relating with peers. How do we get along? How do we make a friend? How do I introduce myself? How do I use my name? How do we communicate with one another so that we can make friends and enjoy coming to school in that social realm? Because remember, your child is now going to be one of 15 to 20 to 25 kids in a room sharing one adult's attention, or maybe a two, with if there's a support person in the classroom. That's a big transition for some kids, especially if they've been used to being in a small environment where a lot of attention is on them. Now I've really got to learn to take my turn. I've got to practice some patience. I need to wait until I don't always get called on. My hand is raised. Why isn't she picking me? Right? Kindergarten and first grade teachers. You're not always going to be first. You're not always going to get picked, and you're going to have to learn to wait your turn. So we talk about this and we teach and we model. Social awareness, same thing. How are my behaviors impacting those around me? How do my choices, even as a 5 and a 6-year-old, have a consequence? Right, a good or a bad. If I welcome someone and I say, do you want to play with me? Hopefully someone will say, yeah, great. If I am not socially appropriate and I say something unkind to you, well, they're probably not going to be receptive to me, right? So it seems like, well, of course, but we really do teach to that. And especially in that larger community now with being in school and being in a classroom, it's different than being at home or in your neighbor's play group or something like that. And then self-management. Again, impulse control, again, as developmentally appropriate to a 5 and a 6-year-old, right? We're not looking for perfect, we're looking for growth. We are looking to support that development, and this is going to be, as someone who's raised 3 children, it's a lifelong thing. We don't ever stop teaching this. It's just teaching it in age-appropriate ways. So self-management. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about SEL skills. Okay? All right, that was the longest slide, I promise. All right. So we teach to this directly, I said it. It's embedded in everything we do. I mean, you've seen, especially even if your kids have gone to preschool, right? We have routines and we have structures and we line up and we sit in certain spots and we do all of that. There is so much social and emotional learning that's already embedded in all of that. But we've gone beyond that in District 204. We have adopted a curriculum that we use. It's called Second Step, and Lauren's going to talk a little bit more about that as we get going here and what that looks like from a kindergarten or first grade lens. But I just want to give you an example of what the scope and sequence is in a kindergarten curriculum. And she'll talk more about what that actually looks like in the classroom. Every classroom in our district is teaching this and implementing this. There are family letters, there are home links. You can ask your kids about that. You can ask your child's teacher about that. What kinds of things are you talking about in your Second Step lesson? How can I support that at home? What kinds of skills are you working on? And this QR code is to the child book list that is published in Second Step. If you're curious and you want to be choosing some of those things and reading those with your kids now, I encourage you to do that, but make it fun, make it engaging, talking about characters, and I wonder what they were feeling on their first day of school. I wonder how that's gonna be like your first day of school, or maybe it'll be different. So there's a lot of different book resources there. This is information. This is from a study that was done 2015. We talked about the relationship between kindergarten social competence, they did, not me, and future wellness. But anyway, what they found is kindergartners who are stronger in SEL competence are more likely to graduate high school, go to college, and advance and continue to grow. Why? Because as you all know, those skills are just as important as the competencies around, can you do the math, can you do the reading, can you write a good letter, but can you get along with people, can you communicate effectively, are you someone that's approachable? It's all those other skills that make up the whole child. Okay? All right, I think Lauren, I'm handing this off to you.
Okay. Again, I'm Lauren Quinn. I teach kindergarten at Peterson. Thank you for coming. As someone who's sending my youngest off to kindergarten, I'm in your shoes too, I get it. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the specifics we do in that SEL curriculum in kindergarten. So when the students come in, we really focus on the skills for learning. They're coming from some preschool, some not, some maybe just at home. They're learning how to do school. It might be new for a lot of them. And so we have these really fun puppets, Puppy and Snail. I almost brought them today, but every time I take them out, my students cheer. And so they love it. It's just a fun way to introduce all the skills to them. Puppy comes out and he's barking and he's running all over the place, and we tell Puppy, you know, we're in kindergarten. We have to learn. We have to learn how to focus attention. We have to learn how to listen. Use our self-talk. We have to learn all these skills. And so we teach Puppy, you know, I bring him in the hallway, through the hall, in our bathroom, just to teach them all the skills for learning. And so we have to explicitly teach these skills, just like we do academics. So we teach students how to add, we teach students how to read, we have to teach students SEL, we have to teach them that social emotional learning piece. Sometimes as adults, we kind of just do these things without thinking about it, but at some point along the way, we've learned how to do them. And so we do sit down and explicitly teach them. And so one of the lessons is how to listen. And so we do eyes watching, ears listening, voice quiet, body still. And that's kind of ingrained to them. They know it. And so then we also do another lesson about focusing your attention. You know, somebody walks past the room and they, you know, go to look at that person. How do we really focus on what we're doing? And we take out our attentoscopes, you know, and there's explicit ways to do it. This is an example that we've taught. This is Paulo and Samara, and they're doing their work. And Samara is pretending to make her pencil as an airplane. So a very common situation that happens. And then we teach, well, what should you do in that situation? We have to use our self-talk. We have to say to ourselves, focus on my work. What do I have to do again? I have to draw 5 circles, focus attention, ignore Samara, focus. So very explicit teaching on, you know, how to handle some of those situations. Another skill that we really focus on is empathy. We really want the students to be able to identify their own emotions and the emotions in other students so that they can react appropriately. They have to learn what someone's face looks like when they're angry. They have to learn what someone's face looks like when they're sad, and so that they can help that friend. They also have to identify it in themselves. What is that feeling you're feeling when your fist clenches up tight and your eyebrows scrunch? And we talk about all those little things. What is that feeling? It's anger. What is the feeling when you might be looking down and you're looking towards the floor? That might be a friend that's sad. And so we really have to make sure they know the feelings. What do you do if there's an accident and you accidentally bump into somebody? How do you handle that situation? Well, you can go up to the friend and say, oh, I'm so sorry, that was an accident. Can I help you? Are you okay? That sort of thing. This is an example of Lonnie and Deshawn, and we're teaching the students to have compassion. What do you do when a friend looks like this? Well, maybe I should go up and, you know, ask him if he's okay. Can I help you? This friend lost his shiny pebble. You can offer to help him. You can offer just to listen. And so we teach those things explicitly, what you can do. Emotion management is another. So we have to be able to manage our emotions when we're feeling a certain way. How to recognize really strong feelings, how to calm down those strong feelings. We talk about this student was trying to get a book off the shelf, but another student took it. So what can you do? Oh, we can see he's starting to get very angry. How can you handle that situation? How can you calm down? We teach the students you can't think when you're having a strong feeling. Your brain doesn't process what you need to do next. It can't problem solve. So we do need to calm down first. We say, stop, I feel angry. And then we teach them the ways to calm down. Belly breathing, counting, using self-talk. Tracy has really started helping the schools get started on these calm down corners. So in a lot of places in our district, in libraries, in classrooms, there might be a special room inside of a school. That it's just a place where students to go when they need to calm down, when they need to regroup, they need to take a minute and take a breath. Adults might just walk away and be able to breathe. Our students do need a safe place to be able to do that. So if a student in my room is, crying and really upset, there's some tools that they can use in the Calm Down Kit. There might be some coloring books, some books that they can read, and they can just sit there and relax, and they get up on their own and then rejoin the group. I have also heard of some families creating calm down corners in their houses as maybe an alternative, like to a timeout or something like that. It's just we all need it. We have strong emotions, and it's just something we do to regulate our emotions. And then last, we talk about problem solving. And so this is a big one in kindergarten. A lot more independence coming. And so they do need to start solving their problems. A lot of them want to come to the teacher and tell me what happened. And I'll often say to them, well, did you try solving the problem with a friend? Did you try saying this? And so that's what we're really trying to guide them to do. Those friendship skills, they have to be able to name their problem, what's happening. Think of solutions. So what can I do about this problem? Explore the consequences. Well, what will happen if I just take my crayon back? Or what will happen if I ask for it back? And then they end up picking the best solution. So this is one we did not too long ago. They're having a problem. This girl wants to play blocks and this girl wants to play puppets. Are they still friends? Yes, of course they're still friends, but how do we handle that? How do we solve that problem? And so we, talk about, well, they can take turns. First play this, then play this. Or they can create a game with puppets and blocks. Again, the things that come naturally to us, but we do have to teach those things to our students. And then one more way that we really do these SEL skills is through a morning meeting or a class meeting. So they have a lot of benefits. Strengthens those relationships, builds that sense of community in the classroom. Oftentimes students will sit in a circle and there's some sort of greeting where they use students' names. It's really important for students to hear their name being used, and sharing some type of answering a question, an activity that really creates that team building, and then a message from the teacher, how they're going to start their day.
All right, so here's where we're going to ask you to join in. It's like, what are the types of things you can be doing now and thinking about at home to help your student with this transition? Providing opportunities for your children to play with other kids. Whatever opportunities you can provide them, non-structured play, imaginative play. We have a lot of research out there that shows the more kids are allowed to play independently and making up their own games, they learn to naturally problem solve, to find solutions, to deal with conflicts. And it provides an opportunity for that learning and growing. So whatever you can be doing now to engage your kids with others is a top recommendation. Really working on building your child's independence. I know it's hard, especially when we are in hurry. I know for myself, when I was with my first son, I learned the hard way. I didn't allow enough time to either transition to places, to get ready for that next activity. And because I didn't do that, and because it took him more time than I thought it should or could or would, now I'm doing it all for him. That's one thing I would do over if I had the chance to do that again. I would allow more time, to allow for more independence, letting them, make mistakes along the way, let them have some choice that is appropriate, right? And when they are in conflict, asking, I don't know, what do you think we should do about that? I don't know, what might be an option to that? I'm not sure. I might need to think about it. I wonder what options or ideas you can come up with, right? I know as parents, we are often quick to jump in and fix, and we want to make things better and easier, or we don't want to listen to the whining or the crying or whatever might be going on. But it really is an appropriate developmental skill to really engage them into solving some of those problems for themselves. when they begin school, be curious about their school day. Please ask them, and ask fun questions. I had a resource one time. It was 100 alternatives to how was your day, right? Specific things like, what was the funniest thing that happened today? Oh my gosh, tell me about the silliest thing that happened. What was the favorite part of what your teacher said or did today? Did you make a new friend today? Who did you sit with at lunch? Did you play a new game at recess? What was hard about today? Was there something that was a challenge for you? It just gives great dialogue, and it keeps that communication fresh, as opposed to, how was your day? What do they mostly say? Fine, good, I don't know, right? And we go, okay, well, let's get on to here, and there. So really be creative with your questions and ask them how their day was. Play games with your kids that are not electronic, please. I'm just gonna personally plug that in there. As a counselor and an educator, we know that the more we can unplug our kids, the better, right? I'm gonna be really honest. Sitting and waiting your turn in kindergarten with 24 friends is not nearly as exciting as the video game that's coming at me, and it's really fun, and I can win and try and go again. And we are really seeing kids struggle to sustain and persevere through hard things because they live in such an instantaneous world. So anything you can do to slow it down, play board games with them, do puzzles, play card games, make things up. I encourage you to do that. Talking about feelings and building vocabulary. Right? We are our greatest role model for our kids. Talking about our own emotions, how we feel about something, how we're handling an emotion, why we feel the way we're feeling. Talk about that, ask them, encourage it. In the books that you read with them, talk about characters. I wonder how they're feeling. I mentioned that earlier. I wonder what they would do. And if you were that character, what do you think you would do? Engage them in that feeling and vocabulary. And then let your child fail. I think I already said that once, right? Let them fail, let them struggle. Because school, there are going to be times where they are going to struggle, they are going to fail. That is just part of growing and learning. We talk a lot about growth mindset. I think that's coming up here in a little bit. But the more that we support them through the failure or the disappointment or the thing that didn't go just well, that's where all that growing really takes place. All right, and then model healthy emotion management, right? Kind of checking ourselves, reflecting, like, how do I handle it when I get frustrated? I'll never forget the first time I heard one of my children use an inappropriate word. It was when we were in a car, because I realized I wasn't always appropriate driving in traffic. And it struck me as, wow, at 3 years old, they were really paying attention, and I was in my own world, right? So we're always constantly having to reevaluate, like, what am I doing? What am I modeling? And then establishing healthy routines. I know you guys are going to talk about that quite a bit as we get into school preparedness. Kids, even if they balk at routines, trust me, they need them. They thrive in them. They're going to have them at school. So the more you can build that capacity in them now and getting ready for school, the better they'll transition.
All right, so these kind of overlap just a little bit. So that growth mindset that Tracy was talking about, let them experience the failure. We talk a lot about the power of yet. It's a very powerful word in our classroom. We say, I can't ride a two-wheel bike yet. I can't read yet. And so encourage them to tack on that word at the end of something when they say they can't do it, because then they'll really be encouraged to keep going. Encourage your child to check in with their emotions throughout the day. Just do a body check. Where are you at? How are you feeling? Talk and model, express feelings appropriately with self-control. That's, again, that modeling piece. I often model with my students, I'm feeling really frustrated. I'm gonna take a breath right now. And so you can do that at home as well to model that behavior. And the persisting on tasks. Maybe they're building a Lego and they're getting really frustrated. You might encourage them to take a break and then come back to it, but keep having them persist. Again, Tracy talked about this, but we're gonna keep encouraging it. Play is really extremely important, and play really encourages problem solving. So, we have a time in our day in kindergarten where they do get to play. And so if they're playing at the kitchen and, somebody wants to be the cook and another person wants to be the cook, they have to learn how to problem solve that. Creativity really comes out in play, and the management of emotions. So if somebody didn't get the toy that they wanted, they have to learn to deal with that disappointment. And then a quote from Mr. Rogers, actually: play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but children's play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. And there's that outdoor play as well. There's the routines. Bedtime routine is a great place to start. I'm sure a lot of you have, the bath, the teeth, the reading, in bed. Please try, and I'm going to put in the plug for reading. Make reading a part of that routine. It's one of my favorite parts of the day, to sit in bed and read with my kids. You will have to then start, having a before school routine if you don't have one already. So like Tracy said, they do thrive on that. So if there's something on our schedule that we always do on Wednesdays and we're not doing it for whatever reason, they do ask, what's happening today? Why aren't we doing that today? Because they're so tied to that routine. And then we do teach the flexibility. We do have to sometimes change our mindset here. Following directions, that will be huge in kindergarten. So giving them 1 or 2 step directions, put on your shoes, then put on your coat, to see if they can follow through with those 2-step directions. That would be really important. And the self-help skills. So they will come to lunch maybe for the first time away from you, and they do have to open up their lunchbox. They have to be able to do all their snack packs, and there's things that we don't even think about, but then in the school setting, sometimes it can become a little problematic. They're in a lunchroom with, 100 kids and a few lunch supervisors walking around trying to manage that. So encouraging your child just, a few weeks before, here, we're gonna have lunch today in our lunch box. Let's practice opening these things up. And what would you do if you couldn't do it? Because there are some students who just sit there the entire lunch and they don't raise their hand to ask for help. So of course they're going to need help, and we're there to support that, but as much independence as you can build ahead of time. Zipping coats, putting on mittens, hats, all of that. Again, it's one teacher often in a class of 25. And so as much independence as you can build would be very helpful. Giving your child small chores or jobs, helping set the table, unloading the dishwasher to help out with that. And thank you so much. So if you have any questions, there are our emails. And we're going to open it up to the panel.
Yes, so at this time, not only do we have Tracy and Lauren, as I mentioned before, we have a panel from multiple schools in our districts and different roles. I'll reintroduce everybody. Lindsay on the end is a student service coordinator, and what that role in the building is they oversee our related services, things like PT or OT or speech, or if your child has an IEP, the student service coordinator works closely with those staff members and those families. Sarah Nowak is the principal here at Welch. Rhiannon Cascanaro is a social worker at Kendall. Luke here is a kindergarten teacher at Georgetown, and then Mary is a first grade teacher. So before I go to the questions that were submitted, I wanted to open up to all of you to see if you have any questions you wanted to ask.
We take bullying very seriously. Anytime that a situation is reported to us as a student being, treated inappropriately, or someone has said something, we obviously investigate it. There is new law and policy, so we do, anytime that a report is made about bullying, we notify the parent that reported it or the student's parent that reported it to let them know that we received the report and that we're going to be investigating. We also then reach out to all of the families and the students that were named as potentially being involved in some unkind behavior or bullying. So we follow a process where we interview all of the different students, whether they be the victims, the student or students who've been bullied or reported as being bullied, any bystanders, and from there we put different interventions and strategies in place, and we work with all of the students and all of the families throughout the process. Most often we also have follow-ups, and we check in throughout just to make sure that things are improving and we're addressing it, and that everybody, of course, feels safe and happy and ready to learn.
I think we also work hard to teach kids the difference between like bullying and then someone being mean,
Correct.
someone being rude, because sometimes the kids will be like, they were mean to me. Like, well, what happened? And like, well, they didn't let me walk next to them. They wanted me to walk in front of them. Like, So we try to kind of understand where they're at and teach them that, because there is a big difference between someone, who just did something that wasn't very nice on the playground and someone being bullied.
Bullied, for sure.
So that's really important to us at all grade levels.
And I think that's one of the reasons the SEL skills are so important, starting in kindergarten, is teaching our students to recognize how to be a good friend, how to share, and if something does happen, how to advocate for themselves and how to ask for help.
We are piloting a new ELA curriculum. It was piloted at various grade levels in all of the buildings at some level. So in my building specifically, it was piloted in K1, 3, and 4, I think. So different buildings had different team members that did pilot it. It is all encompassing. So it'll have the reading, writing, spelling, phonics, phonemic awareness piece. It also pulls in ELL strategies. So it is a very all-encompassing framework for our ELA. And then additional staff members are continually being trained. They've gone through the first few training pieces, and then we'll continue with ongoing training. And it's kind of tiered so that the people that did pilot it will continue to kind of be the liaison for their building. And then this coming school year, everybody will be trained, so it'll be all rolled out.
It's everything. It's all encompassed. So our current curriculum is great, but it's lots of pulling from different places and different resources. And with Savvas, it is all encompassing. It's super interactive. It includes every aspect of literacy. So reading and writing, phonics, word study, everything. So it'll create more consistency too across buildings, across the district. Those that piloted it loved it. So we are very excited. I'm happy to talk about the technology that the students bring. So you're right, we are seeing a ton of students that have cell phones or smartwatches, and our policy and our practice is that they should not be a distraction. They should be turned off and put away during the school day. The watches, obviously, they should be using for a watch, but that's something that we've had to really work with our students and families on, especially the past couple of months, just making sure that they're not using those devices to send text messages or make phone calls or play games, which of course they want to. So technology is obviously important. It's a great tool for a family to be able to communicate with their child. But the devices, we do ask that they keep them in their backpack, turned off, so they aren't a distraction. And then, do you guys want to talk about the differences?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different platforms that we use at our different schools, but Lexia is our English language arts thing that we use the most common. And then Dreambox, and I know some schools use Zern for math. That's tied into our curriculum. Usually about 15 minutes a day we'll have, it depends on the building, but a lot of times they'll have like learning centers throughout the day, and maybe one of those learning centers will be like 15 minutes on Lexia while a teacher is pulling a different group and while some people are doing like word work or something like that. So usually about 15 minutes a day. And it's not something we necessarily do every day, but most of the days throughout the week.
And Mary, do you want to speak to what technology looks like in first grade?
Probably a little bit more than in kindergarten, but still like not a large portion of our day. We also use the Lexia resource, which is a nice tiered system. It's differentiated to each child's learning abilities. So one kid might be on a level 1 and another kid in the same grade level might be on level 5. It moves up according to the skills that they're able to present. For math, we utilize Dreambox, like you had mentioned, and then our building also utilizes Reflex. Dreambox can go with kind of hand in hand with our curriculum. and they'll be working on skills and reinforcing skills that they're taught in the classroom. And reflex is more that automaticity and like understanding like the math facts. So in first and second grade, usually addition and subtraction. So as far as time on those, usually 20 minutes of Lexia in a given day, while, just like he said, while other students are working either with the teacher in small groups doing word work or silent reading, things like that. And then for math, it kind of depends upon, usually in my classroom we'll do, if you've finished the assignment and we've worked through all of those things, if there's extra time they can utilize it, but it's certainly not every day. It's more of like, okay, you finished that, you can spend the next 10 minutes on reflex or dream blocks before we move on to the next piece. So timing wise, no more than like half an hour, 45 minutes at most in a day.
Yes, but they will leave them at school, so they will not be bringing them home. That would weigh their little bodies down, right? We'll keep them at home, with the exception, like this year, we had an e-learning day on election day or voting day. So we did, make sure that the kids had them, but otherwise. Mm-hmm.
At the lower levels, I don't think we really do any writing on the computer. It's all paper, pencil, kind of teaching them how to first form their letters, form a word, form a sentence, punctuate that sentence. So we do follow a writing curriculum. It is also embedded into that Savas My View. There's reading and writing bridges that the students will be doing. So sometimes they're reading responses that correlate with the reading that we've done. And then also we do a lot of just journaling, like not necessarily free writing, but a prompt, sometimes sentence frames, so that we really kind of scaffold that writing and kind of meet them where they're at.
In kindergarten, we talk a lot about being bookmakers. So instead of saying we're writers, because sometimes they just shut down, they're like, I can't write, I'm not doing that. So a lot of times we say we're bookmakers. So we say we're going to tell a story. We're going to have the same topic on every single page. And then we have a picture, and we make sure there's a picture and at least a word on each page. We're also big into inventive spelling and developmental spelling in kindergarten and first grade as well, where what they write on the page won't necessarily look like how it would look if we wrote it, but they are sounding out and they're doing their best and they're trying to put something down on the page. So that's what we're seeing a lot of early on in kindergarten. We're just kind of making a book with one topic. We're putting at least one word and one picture on each page and moving on from there. And as they continue to grow, then we're able to do more complex things. Like right now we're doing some opinion pieces. So we say, I like this, I don't like this, because, and things like that. So we do have our quarterly report cards that'll go out to parents on the Synergy platform. But at the beginning of the school year, a lot of the buildings, I believe every building is still using Jolly Phonics. So we are testing, we're learning 6 different letters at a time, and then we will assess after those 6 letters have been taught to see if the students are able to recognize that letter, if they're also able to do the letter sound that goes with that letter. So the parents will get those pretty often. And then if there is I know if the student has like an individual education plan, they do meet at least once a year or whenever their reevaluation is, to be able to talk with the parents about where their student is based on what their goals are and if there are any adjustments that need to be made for those goals.
We also administer the iReady assessment to all students K through 5. So the iReady assessment is administered in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And we're really looking to see that growth with our students throughout the year. So they're assessed in literacy and math. And then from there, we're able to identify students that might need to be challenged a little bit more, students that might need a little more assistance in an area. So all the buildings have an intervention time, or we call it WIN, so what I need. So during that time, it's really individualized based on what we find out from that assessment, not just the iReady, but all of the formative and summative assessments that are done throughout, right? And then so every building has interventionists and reading specialists that push in and pull kids out in small groups to reteach. And throughout that communication occurs with the families, because it does have to be a partnership. So you'll get a ton of feedback, both formal and informal throughout.
And that actually leads nicely into a question somebody asked. Somebody said, what should I do if I feel like my child is not making enough progress, either socially or academically? How do I communicate my concerns to the teacher?
a great way would just be to reach out and email them. Just say, hi, I have this quick concern. Was just wondering if you could give me a little progress update. A lot of times teachers will get back to you within 24 hours. If there's a bigger concern, you can always ask to actually have a phone call with them and maybe even an in-person conference with them as well.
Yeah, and usually for the social piece, not so much the academic piece for me at least, but as a social worker, if a parent is concerned about their student's socialization with other peers and they email the teacher, then that teacher usually emails or comes to their social worker and talks about like, hey, so-and-so is concerned with, Tommy, Tommy's doing this, this, and this. And then we kind of partner together to maybe find some interventions that we can try to help that student gain some of those skills.
Just that word partner that you used, I feel like as a parent, if you do ever have a question, whether it's for something academic or social or anything else regarding your child's education, please reach out. We really want to build that relationship with you. We want that partnership with you because you are a very integral piece of your child's education. We appreciate, and I think the students really thrive when they see that mom and dad or guardian has a relationship with my teacher. So we want that relationship as much as possible. Please never hesitate to reach out.
It is very much individualized for the student. Different buildings do different things, but every single building does it based on what that child needs. So if a child has a severe food allergy, then our nurse would work with the family and with the student to determine what the needs are, if they need to sit at a separate table, if they need to have a special, wipe done, but in between. We have classrooms that have signs, so we work with the families to communicate that food containing, let's say, nuts, right, don't come into the classroom. So we will work with every student. We want everybody to be safe and to feel safe and to feel included, too. That's really important in all of the buildings. So. Every building looks a little bit different, but there's a ton of opportunities. The LMC is a great way to get involved because it's the center of the school, it's the heart of the school. There's always stuff to be done. At Welch, we've had parents that come in and they run the maker space. So they program robots with the kinders and first graders in small groups and sometimes in the whole class. We have mystery readers, we have reading buddies. It varies in every school. Yeah, field trips, but in every building, there's definitely that opportunity. And if you don't see an opportunity, but you have an idea, bring it to the principal, bring it to the teachers, because I will say we're all very open and want it to feel, like a community. Kids love to see their families at school. We have grandparents that come and neighbors that come, and they just beam with pride, and it really just helps that community. So yes.
Any other questions? I want to make sure that we address one more thing that was brought up a couple times on a registration, is people asking about school safety and how we go about keeping our students safe, as well as how do we teach safety skills to our students, and also sort of addressing the adult-student ratio in classrooms. So can any of you speak to that?
I think one of the things we teach our kids is if you see something, say something. So that is kind of something that we really work with them on and then commend them on. One of the things I was going to suggest you do is incoming kindergarten parents, take your kids to the playground at their school, but don't take them during the school day or someone's going to talk to you about
Exactly.
that, right? Just like you would want us to talk to, the next year's parents if they're out there by your kids, right? So but those kinds of things we're constantly aware of. And we run a pretty strict, we have to be, right? And you all know this, right? We have to be pretty careful. They're your babies. We understand that. You have nothing more precious in your lives. So, in terms of coming in the building, we're going to say hi, how can we help you? And don't get offended by that, right? Just want to know that, you have a reason for being there, and we don't know everybody yet. So a lot of things like that, that we just, the kids are taught that we always close the doors. We don't leave doors open. I know it's nice to hold the door open for your friend, but we're not going to prop it, right? things like that I know our teachers work really hard at.
We also do practice different safety drills, but we do it in a very child and age appropriate way. And really throughout all of the different drills that we do, it's most important that our students know that they need to follow the directions, they need to listen, and they need to do what they're asked. So we do practice throughout the year. In addition to coming in and teaching lessons and reading books and talking about those different situations throughout the morning meetings or throughout SEL to make sure that the students don't feel scared about them or anxious about them, but instead they feel empowered and comfortable that they're going to know what to do in a situation. So that is really important for us as educators. It's important as parents, and we want our kids to know that they are safe. And like Lindsay said, if they see something, say something.
I think it's going to be different building to building, but I know my school this year is having a registration night where all pre-existing students in the building or students who will be new next year are allowed to come in, and they're able to register. They're able to look around the building, do a tour if they would like, and just kind of get to know where they're going to be the next year. There's also a couple events right at the beginning of the school year. There's like a teacher meet and greet. There's also going to be sometimes, like, depending on your school, there might be like an ice cream social, or like come get to see the school, come get to meet some teachers. So I would definitely recommend just calling up your school and asking that question, because every school is going to have something a little bit different, or different days, but something similar.
Usually it's pretty easy to tell the kiddos that don't know where they're going, and we have a ton of support staff on those first few days. We're ready and willing to help all of those kids come through. Some of them will have older siblings, and oftentimes those older siblings can kind of walk them to where they need to go. But if they don't, there's a lot of support staff around. All of the teachers are typically outside of their rooms greeting people, so there will not be kids just wandering. We always have staff all over the building because we anticipate these littles coming in and not really knowing where they're going to go.
And then dismissal at least the first week, we extended it a couple of weeks. We'll take attendance on every single bus every day before the bus leaves to make sure that every child that is supposed to be on a bus is on a bus. Every child that's supposed to be a daycare rider is going to be on that daycare. And we obviously take attendance and check throughout the year, but that first few weeks, we go student by student, just to make sure that everybody really knows where they are. But we assure you, no child is just wandering. We're not going to let that happen. Every building has ample staff and older kids that help. So please don't worry about that.
That first day, we also tag all the backpacks. We just put a little tag on there, so it'll say, I'm on bus 1, or here's my bus number, here's my walker number, here's my car rider number. So if any adult finds a student that's just kind of wandering around and they're very short, they can say, oh, let's take a look real fast. Where are you supposed to be? Oh, bus 2, that's right over here, just in case something did happen.
I just thought of one more thing that I would suggest that you all practice with your children is that they know their first name and their last name. Because it's amazing that first few days of school when we're trying to get to know the kids and we ask them their name and they just stare. They're like, I don't know. I don't know my name. I had a little boy and he said, my name's Alex. I'm like, okay, Alex, what's your last name? Xander. Well, no, I think your name is Alexander. So that's really important, just so that they can assert themselves and be able to tell you their first and their last name. So that's important. We always figure it out, but exactly, but it does speed it up a little bit.
And many of our buildings have their kindergarten rooms directly behind this wall by the door. Yep. So that when they walk in, they're walking directly to their hallway, and they're not wandering upstairs or over here or over there. They just come right in, and then there's 3 or 4 doors in a row, and the kindergarten teachers are in the hallways. And they start to recognize their teacher within a day or two.
I think we all have meet and greets, right? Mm-hmm. So we all have meet and greets at our school, which will be a time where all the teachers are there, and then the kids bring their supplies in. You get to come in. How they look is probably varies school by school. Mm-hmm. And then, I know what we're doing at our school, but I'm just not sure what is universal in terms of other opportunities. Are there, is there an additional opportunity for parents to meet with kindergarten teachers? Is it going to be the meet and greet?
At our school there will be. but again, I'm not sure the consistency.
Yep. So check with your school, because they probably already have an idea of what they're doing. I just don't want to speak to it and then, you're like, why isn't that,
Right. We do have a number of schools too that are getting new flooring this summer. Welch is one of them. We're super excited. But that will impact then when we get back into the building and can set classrooms up. So we'll be doing a meet and greet outside on the playground. We've actually moved to that the past couple of years because what we found when we brought, Welch is a bigger school, we have a little over 600, but 600 kids and parents coming in, even when we staggered it, it was very overwhelming for the kids. So we've moved to an outdoor meet and greet, and we will have opportunities to collect supplies. That's always a concern, right? Sending your littles with bags and bags of supplies. So we'll make sure we work with you on that. I know some buildings, we do a lunchtime practice where we invite parents and the students in, and we actually sit in the lunchroom, and so they can kind of see where they're going to be eating and who the lunchroom supervisors are, and the kindergarten teachers come to that. So every building has different opportunities. If you have a concern about your student, if they're feeling a little more anxious, if they have questions, please reach out to the school, and I assure you they will do everything they can to make sure that you feel comfortable, that your student feels comfortable. So even if it's not like a huge event, we'll make sure that they get what they need and that you get what you need.
And as Lindsay mentioned, she's absolutely correct. The more you can take your child to the building to play in the playground, it's please wait till after the school year's over. But the more they can just walk the perimeter, peek in the windows a little bit, play on the playground, the more it's going to feel like their space and their school. So on the first day of school, it's not going to seem so overwhelming.
So all of our kids who speak a second language is identified by your home language survey that you'll submit when you register. Registration opens up tomorrow. And yes, register your kids, please, so that we want to know you're coming.
Yes.
And it'll get you on our list to communicate. So any parent though who indicates that another language is spoken in the home, those kids will get screened to see if they might need English language learner services. And if they do, we would communicate that with you, and then they're getting that most of the time also during that what I need time, where they're being taught by people whose licenses are in teaching English language learners. So, and then every year we retest them to see, because our kids, they're sponges, they just get it all. They test out of it eventually. And so then they wouldn't get those services anymore. But that's, and those specific teachers in your kiddo's building will be able to speak to exactly what they're doing there. But yes, there are services.
Also, a lot of the things that are like best practice for students that are English language learners are best practice for all students. So a lot of the teachers are doing them anyway, like being very intentional when it comes to introducing like academic vocab. That's something that a lot of teachers are going to be doing anyway, or giving a lot of breaks and checks for understanding. Those are things that we're going to be doing anyway that help benefit all students. I think it depends on your building. So I know at my school, kindergarten eats at 1:25, so that's very late. So we do have a snack earlier on in the day. But based on your building, they will let you know early on what.
Yeah, we try not to let them go more than 3 hours without food, because we know that they get hungry. We get hungry too, right? Especially that first few weeks as they're transitioning. We're not going to send them home starving, okay? And if they do come home hungry, it's not for lack of trying. We do always tell parents that first few weeks, don't be shocked if they come home with not a ton eaten from their lunchbox, right? Because they're looking around and they're talking, but they will adjust, and you'll kind of work with them to determine what they're going to eat. My daughter always liked a bigger snack, because at lunch, that was her time, man, to shine and to talk and socialize. So she took a bigger snack. But every child is different, but we do give them plenty of opportunities. And in all of the buildings, the supervisors are great at working with the teachers too, to try and prevent them from dumping that lunchbox, so that you'll see what they've eaten. They're going to eat the dessert first, no matter what, but you'll get to kind of see and gauge how much they're eating and slowly build, hopefully. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for coming. We enjoyed this conversation and sharing our program with you.